dedicated spot.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Darrell Steinberg, the mayor of Sacramento. I'm joined by two of my very esteemed and committed colleagues, Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Angelique Ashby, City Councilmember Guerra. We may be joined by other members as well, as we call this sort of at the last minute here. I think it is very important today that the community hear from its elected leadership on the events of the past weekend. A 9-year-old little girl, Michaela Brent, died. A 9-year-old little girl died as a result of senseless violence. There are, of course, community leaders, including Councilmember Alan Warren, out in the community, out in the district, and there are a number of lay leaders who I know are working very, very hard to help keep the peace. But as the mayor of this city, I just want to say from the bottom of our heart, we are so sad about the loss of such a young life and the critical injuries suffered by a little 7-year-old and at least 2 other juveniles, and the loss of life and the other injuries. Violence has no place in our Sacramento. Violence has no place in civic life. We know that people are living through an extraordinarily difficult time as a result of COVID, as a result of the fires, as a result of being shut in. But today, in our own way, I ask everyone in Sacramento, regardless of your station in life, regardless of whether you hold a formal position, to please call for peace, to call for nonviolence, to call for grace. This is the time where we must be extra kind, extra careful, extra sensitive about everything and all of our interactions in life. It is campaign season and there's a lot going on and there's a lot of emotion. But please, let us do everything that we can to turn around what appears to be an escalation of gang violence in our community. This is terrible. Chief Hahn, and I want to do a shout out to not only the chief but the entire police department, because they are not only investigating, they're also providing comfort. I want to say the same to all the community leadership out there, whether it's Brother to Brother or the other organizations, Build Black Coalition and others who are out there trying to keep the peace. But this is the fact. Chief Hahn tells us that the ShotSpotter gunfire detection system heard 94 rounds of ammunition fired in these shootings. Over this past weekend, Sac PD has already made 10 arrests on firearms charges over the weekend. Our detectives are working very hard, of course, to solve these crimes. And the significant escalation of gun violence is not unique to Sacramento. It is happening all over the country. And again, tensions are extra high because of what a difficult year 2020 has been for everyone. Young people are cooped up. They're frustrated and tempers are short. We call upon all of our community-based organizations like Brother to Brother and others to continue doing what you're doing, to step it up just as you are doing, to reduce and to eliminate the next shooting, because an eye for an eye only leads to everybody becoming blind. Tonight, a coalition of community groups led by the Black Child Legacy Campaign will be holding a peace and healing vigil at Chavez Park at 6 o'clock. I know I plan to be there whether I speak or not, just to be there in solidarity. Here's what the city can do and what the city is doing. We don't pat ourselves on the back in any way. But I think it is important to note that the city took its $89 million CARES Act funding and we prioritized specific allocations in response to the uptick in shootings that we saw even before. this past weekend. For example, on August the 18th, the City Council voted to grant $2 million to the Black Child Legacy Campaign to continue the Healing the Hood program, which provides in the neighborhood violence prevention and interruption services for young people and families in 7 Sacramento neighborhoods, including Del Paso Heights. We are working with Brother to Brother. We are working with Advanced Peace. We are doing everything we can to pair real-life mentors with real-life experience with the young people considered at the greatest risk for engaging in gun violence. And we're in a great debate here in the city about redefining and expanding what we deem to be the essential functions of city government, to include investing in young people and investing in our neighborhoods. I want to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Angelique Ashby. I know I've talked by text to Councilmember Warren. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby has been talking more directly to him. He will have his own announcement tomorrow, but with a little bit of preview of some of the things that he is thinking about in North Sacramento, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Angelique Ashby. Finally, everybody can do their part to keep the peace. Everybody can be a little bit kinder. Everybody can take a step back when they're feeling that surge of emotion, they're feeling angry. We can all do our part to get out into the community and to show our support, especially for young people who are having such a hard time. We'll get through this. We'll get through it together. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for being here. My name is Angelique Ashby. I'm Mayor Pro Tem and the Councilmember for District 1. And I am here also representing the Councilmember from District 2 today, Alan Warren. He's not here because he is working with the family on some of the personal things that are happening around the loss of Michaela's life. However, in speaking directly with Councilmember Warren over the last 24 hours, he is going to issue a press release in the morning identifying several requests that he plans to make of the city of Sacramento to address violence and crime in his district. Amongst those will be investment in the Sacramento Public Libraries in North Sac and Del Paso Heights, making sure that the gang task force has the resources they need to deal with the violent acts of this weekend, making sure that Mama Mark's Park is renovated and has any repairs that it needs, and making sure that cameras can be installed in Mama Mark's Park. Councilmember Warren and myself have the distinct pleasure, along with the mayor, of representing everybody north of the river and living in that area too. And it is extremely unusual to have this much violence in one weekend. 10 events, 5 people shot, 3 homicides. It's far too many. And I know that Councilmember Warren, myself, the entire council, and the mayor, we all agree that every park in the city on a Saturday afternoon should be a perfectly safe place for a 9-year-old girl, and we won't rest until it is.
Thank you, Angelique. Let me turn it over to the gentleman that represents the City Council District I used to represent. A lot of Southeast Sacramento, my friend Councilmember Eric Guerra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here in solidarity with the families here. It's another reminder and that underscores the need to fund more of our youth programs. If this does not send the message that cities must do more to look at funding youth programs, then we will never change anything. COVID-19 has shown us how much we need to focus more on our youth. And this is only another tragic event in our city. The first year on the city council, there was a 16-year-old boy who was shot in front of his grandmother's house in my council district. And we look back at this time here today, and there's questions about how we finance our city budget. Clearly, when we're spending so little on youth, we are not doing enough. We've asked time again to do this, and we should do this now. and I'm excited about seeing what Councilmember Warren is going to be proposing so that we can continue to move forward on this issue. When we look at where these tragic incidents are happening, they're in communities that are Latino, that are Black, that are Southeast Asian, communities that far too long have been left behind, and it's time to change that and focus on our future, focus on our youth. And we stand here to support the family, to support the community. Juntos Unidos Sacramento, yes, we can do this and move forward together.
Eric, we'd be glad to answer any questions. I just want all of us to, again, reflect on the loss of life of a 9-year-old little girl, and how many 9-year-olds there are out there in our community who know about this, who may be afraid, who wonder even at this young age what their future is about. For those teenagers and or young adults who commit senseless acts of violence, there is no excuse. But there are many more thousands of young people out there who just want to do the right thing and want the opportunity to do the right thing. And that's where what I call adult accountability comes into play. As Eric said, as Angelique said, as Alan Warren will say, it is on us to redefine and to, frankly, to expand our definition of what we consider to be a core city responsibility. It must include investing in our neighborhoods, especially our disadvantaged neighborhoods, and investing in our youth, because we aren't doing enough. That must change. Happy to answer your question. I'm sorry? Well, first of all, we'll take Councilmember Warren's recommendations about revitalizing Mama Marks Park, about making sure that there is security, about adding the youth programs, about doing what we were already primed to do through Measure U, which is to expand and build out the Del Paso Heights Library. But again, we have to do a whole lot more, and I don't want to get political here in front of City Hall with the campaign rising and all that, but I think I've been pretty clear, and I think my colleagues have been pretty clear, certainly those standing behind me, that we have to do a whole lot more to expand the definition of what we consider to be a core city responsibility. It means investing in our neighborhoods, especially our disadvantaged neighborhoods. It means investing in our young people. Yes?
Mayor, a lot of the kids that do get involved in city garden programs aren't the ones that are doing the violence.
Well, this is where, again, our community-based organizations are so important. It's the brother to brother, right? It's the Merv Brookins of the world that are out there in North Sacramento that have the long-standing community ties and relationships, who can talk to, if not directly to the people perpetrating the violence, those who know them. I mean, this is ultimately, look at what people with leadership positions, formal leadership positions, can do is be positive catalysts. We can provide the resources, we can provide the direction, but ultimately it's about the community taking ownership, with us being partners. And I got to tell you, we have an incredible network of community-based organizations and community leadership in all parts of our city. And I know that they have been on endless conference calls and Zoom calls over the weekend, not just talking about this, but they are actually out there in the community. So the combination of our resources, for example, our $2 million to Healing the Hood and all of the constituent programs within that, combined with the people who live in the community, know the community, and get to those kids, that's our best chance. We'll turn this around. Yeah.
Let me just add to that a little bit. Yeah, trying to reach the young people who are involved in the violent acts is about targeting a certain group. Brother to brother is certainly helpful in that. But the city has a larger picture in mind. Mayor and Councilmember Warren have a larger picture in mind, and that is breaking down cycles of violent behavior in families. Little 9-year-old Michaela had nothing to fear walking into that park, and yet she didn't walk out. She was known to the library branch manager because she was involved in the library in her community. And when we can get to 9-year-olds, when we can create safe places, when we can protect the children who are in Mama Mark's Park on a Saturday afternoon at a family barbecue, then we know that we have done what we came here to do.
Okay, go. Hi, Sammy.
There's been criticism that the Measure U funding was not materializing in the communities it was intended for.
Well, so I think that's half correct. Measure U, of course, is one of the great debates in the community. Is intended, the second half is intended to be invested in exactly what I said, directly into the community. COVID hit, and the second half cent in some ways went away. It shrunk. So what did we do? We did not sit on our hands and say, woe is us, we can't deliver. Instead, we made an intentional and purposeful leadership decision when we received the $89 million of COVID relief fund, not to invest it in our general fund, not to fill holes in our budget, but instead to invest it directly in the community. And almost $20 million of it went to youth and to workforce development, and $2 million went to healing the hood. And so if the standard is perfection, we have none of it's been perfect. But if the standard is actually living up to our promises, the combination of the initial Measure U investments and the CARES Act funding, we have more that delivered. But the real question now, since CARES is one time, is what are we going to do now going forward to sustain that investment? And that's where the issues of the day and the campaigns, et cetera, are calling the appropriate questions.
I'd like to say something the mayor won't. I'm going to tell you something that the mayor won't. $40 million of commitment annually towards youth is a really big deal and shouldn't be ignored. We want to invest in libraries. We've made that real clear. And we continue to do it. By the way, I personally have run 2 library bonds in the 10 years I've been on this council. And I've carried 2 school district bonds in the time I've been on this council. And everybody behind me has done the same. And every member of that council has put themselves out there for youth and for youth programs. And we're going to continue to do that. This is the only city that used COVID money to bridge the digital divide, to make sure that everyone has internet. This is the only city that prioritized getting food to everyone, seniors, kids not in school. This is the only city that stepped in with every school district in the city and said, we're not going to leave any child behind academically, nutritionally, or socially or emotionally. We spent a lot of money on mental health services, on helping people. And we're extremely disappointed that this happened this weekend, but all it does is relight the fire in us to find more ways to help more families.
The issues that are affecting our neighborhoods, and particularly our youth, don't start just with when they're at 9 years old. I mean, from my own personal experience and talking to members in the community, when kids and when our youth get into situations like what we see here today, because they've lost hope, they've lost the outlook. The fact that we don't think about this holistically, about investing in neighborhoods, because when they see their parents and the lack of opportunity their parents have, the lack of their friends have, that's what inclusive economic development is about as well. It's about being able to see themselves do something better, succeed better, do more, being an opportunity. So not only is it investing in youth, but it's the workforce training program to making sure that they see them their way out. And so many of my friends that I grew up with, we didn't have them. We didn't lost them. Some of us were fortunate where we were during the pre-Prop 209 era when affirmative action was first taken away, and we were able to get reached out to by these programs. I mean, if you lose hope, that's where you start seeing the internal crisis happening. So the funding that we have to do is in our youth, and it's in investing in opportunities for our communities to tackle the direct issue that's happening. It's that tragic loss of hope. And I know that if we continue on the path of focusing on that investment, focusing on those communities that have been left behind, on all aspects, not just the youth and education, but the opportunity for their parents and their families, that's what's going to make a change.
Yeah, hi.
A lot of protesters have pointed to the police budget as a possibility to fund police system.
was, as Councilmember Ashby said a moment ago, again, I potentially don't want to get into the campaign stuff, but I've called for $40 million a year to be set aside for what we call neighborhood-based economic development, with a minimum of 25% of that amount going to youth. If that becomes a reality, then we are going to have an obligation as a city council, as a mayor, as a city government to find at least that amount of money to invest in our young people and in our neighborhoods, because that's what the law will require. Yep. Are we good? Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.